In this video, I'm going to show you how to take a simple sketch of Santa Claus like this and clean it up in Manga Studio and then color it in Photoshop. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video. If you're new to this channel, I make art tutorials for coloring comics and I share beginner artist tips and advice for young artists starting out and seasoned veterans. So you can click the link above to check out other tutorials I've made, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to see more content that I'll be putting out in the long run. So some people have been asking me if I do draw, and yes, I draw. This is my drawing, and right now I'm just drawing in Adobe Photoshop. I like to use Photoshop to draw and sketch, but when I want to clean my inks, I usually use Manga Studio or Clip Paint Studio to clean my inks because the brushes are finer there and feel more like a pencil and feel more like a pen when you're inking in Manga Studio. But right now I'm just using Photoshop to draw, and right now I'm just using a basic hard round brush. I'm not using any fancy sketching brush or any textured brush or anything like that. Now my sketch is just really loose. I like to play around with a lot of shapes and just forms and just see how the drawing goes from there. I think later on I'll do a more precise in-depth tutorial on drawing and just how to nail your anatomy and all that. But as you can see, I exaggerated the girl's forms. I made her hips larger and her tits larger, as well, as I like to draw girls that have exaggerated forms, and they actually just look cool in drawing. I don't know if anyone knows Rake. Rake does a really fantastic job in drawing really amazing girls, and Roberto too. Roberto Art, he draws really fantastic girls, and Art Germ too. So yeah, right now I'm just trying to draw her face, and I really love keeping everything loose. I don't do fine strokes, one strokes. I don't know how to do that. I've done it before, but it's not something that I enjoy doing. I just love having my sketches be really loose so I can play around with different ideas and just see which works, which will actually help me make the forms readable, and I can just enjoy drawing a lot. Also, I don't use a display pen. I'm actually using a Wacom Intuos Pro pen tablet to draw, so you can imagine how that is. So right now I've taken my simple sketch and I brought it into Manga Studio, and I started using an R1 brush. You can download that from Manga Studio website or just search for it, the R1 pen brush. But I usually like to use it to draw if I'm using Manga Studio, but in this tutorial I started using it to ink, and I saw that it wasn't giving me the kind of lines that I wanted it to give me. The lines were not really sharp and hard, so I had to switch back to using a textured pen in Manga Studio. If anyone uses Manga Studio, I think you'll know these tools that I'm talking about. So I'm just pretty much cleaning up the line out, cleaning up the inks, and just making sure that all the lines are I'm having some movement in the lines. So what that means is you have some lines that will go from thin, they'll get thick, and then they'll get thin again. So that's like thin to thick lines. To make sure if you're cleaning up your line out, make sure there's some kind of movement in the line out, there's some line width. So in the shadowy areas of your inks, those parts are going to have thicker lines than the places where light is hitting in your inks. So just keep that in mind whenever you're inking. And another thing I love to do when drawing is just pretty much, I'm not actually using one stroke. I'm just pulling my pen gradually on the tablet surface, and that helps me to kind of draw smoother because I'm not using a display pen. I'm using a Wacom Intuos, so I'm kind of just looking at my screen and not looking at the drawing tablet. So having just one broad line, continuous movement helps me kind of keep the lines smooth. Now I brought the inks into Photoshop, and first thing I did was to just select all these white spaces, and then I inverted that selection so I can get the entire silhouette of the character. But what I noticed is whenever there are spaces in your line art, Photoshop won't let you select everything, and so I had to use the pen in Photoshop to just fill in all the blank spaces in my line art. So make sure that all your lines make sure that all the ends meet, and then you can select it and then invert the selection. So what I did was create a selection of the entire character, fill it up with gray, and then I made the background a little bit bluish, and then use light blue for the floor where the light is hitting, because I'm thinking of having a light that's coming from top and just blasting at her thighs and on the gifts on the ground, and then using that to bounce some light a little bit upward into some forms that are facing downwards. So what I'm doing is selecting all the elements of her body, and then I'm filling them up with their different colors on different layers, and then I'm pinning those layers onto the silhouette layer that I have at the bottom. If anyone doesn't know how to do this, you can check other tutorials I've made in the past and you understand how this technique works. But really what I'm trying to do in this image is to make sure that everything is going to be cool. I intend to have kind of cool colors in the image, but we'll see how it goes. I initially started using a warm colored light source, and then I just saw that it's not working in the image, and I then turned it to a blue purple light source, and I'm going to show you how that looked when I used the warm light source in the image. And why that didn't even work is already I have insinuated that the image is going to be lit by a cool light source because of the blue on the ground. So I felt that it was kind of conflicting with the light source I had created, so I had to change it. Anyways, right now I'm still just flattening the entire character and just making sure that all the elements are on different layers, so it will be easy for me to change colors if I want to do anything like that. So next thing I do is create a layer above all the flats, and then I fill it with light blue and set it on multiply. So this just makes the flat colors that you already have, it gives it a blue tint, and that blue is going to be my shadow. And then I cut out the areas where I want the light to hit. As you can see, that first harsh light source that is coming in, I've already cut it out of her thighs, and then I'm cutting it out from the gift items on the ground. So you can see that that's where my main light in the image is coming from. But although I'm going to still use an ambient light source to light other parts of her character, and that's because if a light source like this is coming down and blasting on her thighs that harsh, it's going to bounce off onto other areas in the image. So basically I'm believing that there are other, if this was a room, there are other surfaces that are reflecting light in the room, so those are going to create an ambient light source to furthermore reflect light back onto the characters and back onto the gift item. So you just have to think about the area that your character is situated. So right now you can see where I was changing the lights, and I made it warm. Right now I was just looking at this, I knew that this wasn't really working, but I still wanted to push it so I can have warm lights on her thighs and then a cool light source hitting her from the top as the ambient light. But after just working more into the image, I saw that that wasn't really working, and I just took it out. Now what I'm doing right now is just using the smudge tool to smoothen out the shapes that I created on her thigh. I wanted it to be a little bit smooth, and I didn't want it to have any hard edges. But later on I still did not go with this technique because I felt like it really didn't look like something. It didn't feel like my style, so I just went back to using my hard shapes and hard cuts. Now right now I created a layer above everything and used screen, and then I was using it to brush in the areas where that harsh light source was hitting to make it glow a little bit. Now, as you can see, it's conflicting with the colors that I was putting in the face, and I was noticing it, but I still wanted to just push the image forward so I could see how far I could get before deciding to change the color. And if anyone has watched any of my other tutorials, I'm still using the same technique for painting her face right now. I'm just using an ambient light source from the top, and I'm selecting cool colors just to paint in her skin gradually. And one thing I'm doing in this image, or anytime I'm painting girls, this is what I always do. I don't use a lot of hard cuts when it comes to their physique or the curves on their body, because female characters won't really look good if you're using hard cuts and the drawing doesn't have a lot of hard edges. So you actually have to look at the drawing style of the artist that drew it. For this one, I drew it myself, so I'm just following this style of my own drawing. For another artist, if he has angular lines, you have to follow the style of the artist when you're coloring. So for this one, I'm just keeping all the selections a little bit smoother. I'm using more of round shapes to create my cuts when I'm coloring her forms, because I don't want her curves to have sharp edges when she has more curves on her body. So it's like putting a triangle where you're seeing a curved form. That will just look awkward. So I didn't use any triangles in this image, but usually, I use a lot of triangles. So in this one, I didn't use triangles. I used a lot of curved forms, curved shapes, and more of just round shapes to flow with the drawing that I had made. So right now I can see that the forms are beginning to read, so I just create another layer above, and then I set it to multiply, and then I start painting in the shadows. Now why I do this way is because the drawing doesn't have a lot of blacks, and whenever I'm coloring a drawing that doesn't have blacks, I like to use a multiply layer to paint in shadows, so the image won't just look flat like there are no shadows in it. Now I can see that the forms are beginning to read, but that warm light source at the bottom is still confusing me a little bit. So right now I started to pull, I think I deleted the layer, but I deleted it a little bit. I erased some parts a little bit, and I was just pulling it back gradually because I knew I didn't want to use it in the image. But later on, I just deleted it entirely, and then I used a cool kind of blue purple light source coming from the top. Now back onto what I'm doing right now. As you can see on her curves, I'm still using just curved round shapes to render her forms, her arms, her tummy, and her boobs. I'm just using curved forms a lot in this image, curved shapes, just to render almost everything in the image. And right now I was thinking of kind of making the spaces between the chair. I wanted to make them glass, but then I felt like it would be overkill, so I just left them empty and continued rendering other parts of the image. Now for anyone who doesn't know how to render forms or paint girls or anything like that, I think you should take out time to do studies of female figures. Before I even did this drawing, I bought a new sketchbook, and then I filled it up with, I think, roughly about 50 to 60 drawings, just 50 to 60 sketches of female characters. I just went on Instagram and searched for female models and just started drawing the forms that drawing from the images that I saw, but I was just drawing their forms, a lot of them. I think I filled the sketchbook, I filled about 5 to 6 pages in a day or so, and that was roughly 60 characters. So what you want to do is just do a lot of sketches so you can understand the forms you're drawing, so you won't just go into the drawing and make mistakes, make bad renditions of the characters you're trying to portray. So like I said, just do a lot of studies. If you don't know anatomy, I'll suggest you should use Andrew Loomis his book on figure drawing. He has a book on figure drawing for All It's Worth by Andrew Loomis. Look for that book, use it to understand how forms work, use it to understand how the human figure looks, how to light it, how to shade it, and how to just simplify the drawing the human figure. I think the book is targeted mostly to people who want to draw like how they do in ateliers, where everything is really pushed and not stylized, but you can use that to understand the forms, and then maybe you can go back and use Christopher Hart's book, what's the name? I think it's Simplified Anatomy also, to push to push your shapes and just draw simplified characters. So you can go back and forth between both books and then pretty much draw from life to draw from photos, just to solidify the knowledge you've learned from either of the books. And then another book you can also use is Michael Hampton's book, Figure Drawing and Design. That one is really amazing. It teaches you everything you need to know about the muscles, and I'll suggest you should use those 3 books. That I used 2 of those books, Andrew Loomis's book and Michael Hampton's book. So I'll go back to Michael's book and study those for the actual anatomy, and then I'll use Andrew Loomis's book for the forms, gesture, and just knowing how to just draw the human proportions of head. Now right now, as you can see, I've pushed this image a lot. I have almost reached the end of the image, but what I did was just to change the blue light that was hitting her leg. I used an overlay layer. I made it blue, I filled it with blue, and then I created another layer above everything and used purple to make the light seem like it was glowing. And then I went back and created a layer and set it on soft lights, and then I started gradually pushing the color of certain areas in the image, like her skin tones, her hair, the red in her hoodie, and just pretty much bring it a little bit closer to what skin and other colors will look like. Now anytime I'm coloring like this, I like to make my colors desaturated so I can push the saturation when I'm going to the end of the image, and then that just helps me to maintain my values and kind of see what part of the image I want to keep saturated and what part of the image I want your attention to go to. So for this image, I want you to first look at the lighting. Oh, whoa, what's this purple light? What's happening here? And then you now start to gradually ease around and look at the image, look at her face, look at the other parts of the image that are interesting. And right now I'm talking about the gifts, the boxes on the ground. Those are very interesting parts of the image. Other parts can be interesting, but look at the boxes, look at the gift items first. I didn't get any gift for Christmas. I don't think people in my house celebrated Christmas. I hope you guys did. You can just leave a comment if you had a great Christmas, what you did for Christmas. If anyone drew for Christmas, please leave a comment down below. Let's have a discussion. Tell me how your Christmas is going, and if you have any New Year resolutions, you can tell me. You can leave a comment down below. Let's know your New Year resolutions, and let's see if we can help. Let's see if, for those of you that want to start doing studies every day, make it a commitment. Leave a comment down below. Let me know how committed you are to drawing, so I'll hold you responsible. Every day I'll come up on my channel and ask you, how many drawings, how many figures have you drawn today, how many images have you made today? And then you tell me one, and I'll know that, okay, this person is not going to improve in the time allotted. So I don't think I have made any New Year resolutions for myself, but I think I just have a couple of goals that I hope to reach, like growing my channel some more and helping each and every one of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a segment where I ask you guys to send me your images to an email, and then I'll pretty much review them, critique them, might even do paint overs sometimes, and just send them back to you and upload the video on my channel. So you guys can just let me know down in the comment section what you think. If this is something you would love, just let me know. I hope you enjoyed this video, this image, it was a really fun image for me. I had so much fun working on this image. I don't know why. It's really something that I love doing, just drawing and then coloring my own drawings. I really enjoy doing it, but it takes so much time, especially when you have to draw, ink, and color everything by yourself. Ugh. I don't know. I really enjoy coloring other people's lines, but man, this was quite a hassle. So make sure you give the video some thumbs ups. If you can give it 1 or 2, ask your friend to like the video too. That will make me really happy. That will be my own Christmas present. Yeah, so share the video with friends, leave comments down below, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace. I'd love to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters. Thank you for letting me do what I do. And if you love to support my work and my channel, you could go down and click the link in the description to subscribe to my Patreon page. And with all that being said, I will see you in the next video. Peace.